Good evening once again on another Tuesday evening. Good to see you again this evening. A bit blowy, so I hope nobody's been harmed. As I think I have heard of a disaster already. I think of some people having to be moved out of a seaside resort due to flooding. But anyway, trust you all well. Tuesday evening, 7 o'clock. We'll continue with our series of moral injury. I was going to end the last one, but the feedback has been so much. So I'm going to continue it for another week or so because there's so much to it. And I think one of the things that we need to know is when things happen to us, it's good that we have an idea. Sometimes things we have some experiences and then we think, that's what it was when we actually start to read it. So I'm just waiting for my sound engineer just to give me a quick nod, and then we're going to be up and running. So today we're looking at moral injury, the inner angst crying out for outward expression. And thank you for those who've made comments this week. I'm really, really grateful. Thank you, Sonia. I'm going to kind of get going. So my name is Delroy Hall. I've got a new account on Facebook, but I set this up last night before I got this new account. And then I've just tried to access Facebook with StreamYard, and it's refusing access. There's a few things I need to do. I haven't got the time to do it. So hopefully for next week, those of you that are on Facebook, I'm back on Facebook next week. So we're looking at moral injury. It was a quote that I read. It's can we stop, those of you who've not read the article, can we please stop associating strength with someone's ability to smile through their tears and suffer in silence? Strength is brave enough to talk about what is hurting you on the inside. My goodness me, that got some traction this week. I think my normal views or whatever is around about 400, 450 this week. Just the week alone is, I think it's just over 2,000 now. It really has spoken to people. People have commented what they've experienced. So I want to a big shout out to Martin Dearlove. He was one that, thank you, sound engineer. He was the one that shared the quote on his page. I'm just going to put his link on. So if you want to follow him up, very interesting guy. Is involved in, here we go. Let's see. So some of you may see it, some of you may not. There's a link to his LinkedIn page. Is involved in highly skilled, qualified professional social worker in the field of child protection, family support. Got an amazing amount of following. He's done work in America and in Australia and here as well. And his thing is not his thing, but it's really about working with children. His specialism and interest are children, mental health, children's rights, children's advocacy, activism and child protection, family support and early intervention. So really he's about looking after children. So if you want to check him out, Martin Dearlove. I said I would give him a shout out. I asked him, he said he was fine with that. So that's what I'm doing this evening. So to smile through our pain and tears while suffering in silence makes life easy for many. This is how some folks like it. All they do sometimes, right? You know the type of individuals. You're really kind of broken, and all they do, they just rub you hard on the shoulder and say there, and just kind of send you on your way. Basically, they're saying with that, I'm not interested. I've heard people say that when they've been wanting to talk to somebody, and somebody will just rub them on the shoulder and basically rub them on the shoulder like a little animal and just kind of pat them away and then kind of move away. But this thing is killing you on the inside. And I'm going to continue this series on moral injury. I was going to finish it, but I'm going to continue it for another couple of weeks because there's so many aspects to it. And I'm thinking, look, I don't want to finish it here. Somebody said to me this morning, I'm really sorry that you're finishing this series. And really, that's not the only person, but it really needs to kind of go on for a bit more. So I've already defined what moral injury is, so I don't need to spend more time on it. If you want to know what it is, look at my pages, certainly on YouTube. Sorry, not YouTube, on LinkedIn. I've got lots of definitions there for moral injury. Now, here in the UK, and I guess the States, here in the UK, I think we're still years behind. There's still a blurring between what is moral injury and what is burnout. So burnout, as we know, can be caused in toxic work environments, working long hours, not being treated properly. Moral injury is about our values being violated. And also it could be, a moral injury can lead to burnout. And you can be a very loyal worker, working in a very vicious, toxic environment. You want to do good, that's your values, but the work environment which you're in doesn't allow you to do that. that causes inner tension and inner grief. And you can't keep doing that forever without some form of impact on you. So I've said already, I've spoken about angst. I like the word angst. It refers to a feeling of deep anxiety or dread. And it's about when we look at the human condition and the state of the world. There's lots of angst with individuals now. The war in Russia, Ukraine, in Israel and Gaza, a lot of turmoil. So there's this kind of inner angst and dread that lots of people are feeling. What is this world coming to? What is the state of this world? And maybe a very live broadcast is really that how do we remain content and happy when there's so much sadness and atrocities going on? That's something in itself. That's a series that's worth kind of looking at, because one of the things I'd want to say to us that we need to be careful when we watch the news. You remember during COVID, so many people were watching the news for hours on end, and people were having major difficulties with anxiety and depression and so forth. If you watch negative stuff long enough, it will affect you. So certainly good to know what's happening in the world, few minutes and then on to the next thing so that you're aware, but don't become so enthralled by it or dwell in it that it occupies all your thinking moments and your thinking time. This whole thing about moral injury is a huge topic. The whole thing about being violated. I recall a friend of mine down south, university lecturer, which the university will name nameless, and there were two incidents actually. She got a phone call from a head of department one day and called into the office. And what was it? What have I done wrong? You're spending too long with the students. That was for her. In fact, she's no longer involved in academia at all. She walked away completely from it. Another friend of mine down south, when she told the class that she was leaving, this is what the student said to her: "We're glad that you're leaving. We're so surprised that you stayed so long because we saw how they treated you." That is not good. If students see how the system, staff are treating other members of staff, that is not good. That's moral injury. The person has left and started their own business and doing incredibly well. So this happens not just in war where there's a violation of values, but certainly in real life as well. So strength is needed to find courage. And that's interesting about this whole thing about courage. In fact, there was something by Gabor Mate, which I'm going to come back to in a bit. There's a quote by Gabor Mate that I really love about trauma. He says, trauma is not what happens to you, it's what happens inside of you as a result of what happens to you. So you can be seeing things which are clearly wrong, but it's not so much what you see, as he says, it's what's happening inside of you. And that discomfort, that dis-ease, that angst, that pain, that turmoil, that inner tsunami, that inner churning is vying for expression. It needs to be released, and if it's not released, we have problems later on in our lives. We think we can get away with it, but actually we can't. One of the things when I've worked as a counsellor, as most of you know now, for over 30 years, and sometimes people will say certain things, and you're kind of listening to this and thinking, "Well, this is really bad stuff," and then they'll say things like, and I've heard it so often, "Delroy, there's people far worse off than me." And I said, yes, that will always be true. But my concern is what you are going through, what impact is it having on you? That's the thing that's really important. What impact is this having on you? You can shrug it off. You can style it out, as we say in some cultures. We can act big, we can act tough, but what effect is it having on you? And that question alone brings the conversation into a new way of kind of looking at things. As I said, one of the experiences I had, I taught teenagers many years ago. Oh gosh, possibly 20 years ago now. And we were together. There were Asian guys, African and African Caribbean guys, school kids, 15, 16. And all of them, bar one, had been stopped by the police more than once. Either they were looking in a shop or some real kind of whatever was going on. They'd been stopped by the police. And as young men together, they were there kind of styling it out, and they were acting all bravado. And I sat and listened to this because I was a facilitator, and they were styling it out and all the rest of it. I asked one question. I said, I noticed that you guys are acting out and laughing and so forth. And then I said this: how did it make you feel? Within an instant, the ambiance, the environment, the group changed. Then the guys started to talk about how they felt hurt, embarrassed, ashamed, humiliated, scared, felt threatened. The mood changed when I asked the question, how did it make you feel? And sometimes we go through stuff and we style it out. Some cultures, of course, then it almost is not permitted to express how they feel, but it's having an impact on them. But that question, how did it make you feel, is really important. One of the things I do ask sometimes, I don't ask it all the time, but oftentimes in counseling, how do you feel, without using the word fine, okay, or I want people to really explain what they feel. And sometimes with young people in particular, they really struggle to put into words how they feel. So there's some ways around this, two ways that I use. If they're really struggling, one way is, if you can't describe how you're feeling, how would you describe it in a shape? What does the shape look like? What color is it? Has it got holes in it? Does it smell? And it's amazing how that can really help young people to really engage with the emotional world. And the other thing sometimes I say to young folks, look, I can see you're really struggling to express how you feel. Is there any type of music or songs you're listening to that helps you to describe why you feel it? And they say, yes, it's this or it's that. And I ask them to bring it in the next time, and we listen to it. What is it about the song? What is it about the words that really kind of get you? So this whole thing of wanting expression is really, really important. So Gabriel Mate has been interviewed by Dr. Rajan Chatterjee, and he's talking about things that we learn too late. Now, there's an excellent book by Bronnie Ware, who was a hospice nurse, wrote this book called The 5 Regrets of the Dying. And basically, Gabriel Mate has done a take on that, and he's kind of explored it a bit further. One of the things, though, he said that these people who were interviewed weren't necessarily old people. Some of them are perhaps dying, terminal illness or chronic autoimmune illnesses, who were dying before their time. Kind of not young people, but kind of not old people. And this whole thing about suppression is really important. Suppression, we know now, suppressing unpleasant emotion causes many, many forms of illness. I don't know one person who's contacted me who's experienced moral injury who has not felt the violent effects of it. More often than not, they've had to leave the place where they work, suffer with anxiety and depression. Some people, one person I know as a personal friend, after she experienced moral injury, she was off work for 2 years. Her whole diet has changed. Things that she loved, she can no longer eat. So there's a massive impact on one's being, on one's body. This whole thing, this inner angst, crying out for external expression. There's this stuff that's gone on inside of you, and it needs to be expressed. Really important. One of the things I think we know enough now. Certainly, if you're aware of the work of Dr. Mate, we know enough now about suppressing. Well, certainly now more so in Western medicine, there is a slow understanding, maybe in some areas a lot quicker, slow understanding that if we suppress emotions, it causes significant illness. One of them, of course, is cancer and other things as well. I certainly recall a friend of mine who came from a very kind of dysfunctional family, and from the age of 11 or 12 had major problems with their relationship with food. There were certain foods that she was unable to eat. She was a real foodie, but there were certain foods she couldn't eat because it reacted. And when I kind of listened to her and traced it back, there was lots of turmoil going on in the family. And for somebody who didn't talk much, she absorbed it all, and it had a massive effect on her body. One of the things that my friend shared with me, and I want to share with us that's listening online as well. Sometimes what we do, we work in a place or we work a career, It's not good. It's not doing us any good, but we are loyal. It could be, you could be a social worker. You're loyal to the organization. Maybe you're loyal to the kids, but the organization, the bureaucracy is killing you off. I recall talking to, in fact, 2 school teachers last year, I think it was. One was a singer, and I was chatting to one. I'd seen him when I went to football matches, but never got into a conversation with him. Anyway, I got a chat with him, and I said, what was he doing, all the rest of it. And he started to tell his story, and his story basically was, he said, Delroy says, I'm now a landscape gardener. I said, right, have you always done that? He said, no, I was a school teacher. He said, I loved it. I loved the children. But he said, I couldn't take what was happening in the school and how the education system was. And he said, what happened, I saw what was going on. It affected me. Long-term sick, chronic depression, and now the job I'm doing, it's the best job I've ever done. Nobody escapes the pain of moral injury. However, of course, we can get to the other side of it, as I shared last week, and it can be a real game changer in how we shape our lives. So this whole thing. So again, I was talking to my friend. I was in a particular situation, loyal to the organization, loyal to the people. And he said something to me. I don't know if he's listening. His name's Roy from London. If he's not, I'm going to tell him. He's a very good friend of mine. I've not even asked his permission because I know him well enough that he wouldn't mind me saying this, but we had this conversation. He may have forgotten, but I've never forgotten. Delroy said, loyalty is a good thing, but loyalty can kill you. And I remember him saying that. He didn't say it in anger. And I remember those words reverberated in my head for weeks. Delroy, loyalty is a good thing. And I'm loyal. If you get to know me, I am loyal to a fault. But I recognized then that loyalty was on the verge of killing me. And I remember sharing some stuff recently online. I can't remember which session it was. And somebody messaged me privately to say that I think, yes, he was, that's right. He was unexpectedly dismissed from a workplace. And he said, since that day, he's never, ever been loyal to an organization. So loyalty is a good thing, but loyalty can kill you. And one of the difficulties we have as people that are loyal is knowing when to make the decision to leave, because this thing is killing you. And it's really important. If you know people are like that, you can see the job's killing them. You can see that they're suffering. They're very loyal, dedicated, but they're not thriving in that environment. And as a friend, take them out for coffee, have a chat with them to say, look, this is what I've noticed. Not so much a judgment call. You're saying, this is what I've noticed. How are you handling things? And maybe then they can tell you what really is kind of going on. But this whole thing about loyalty, and in fact, if I'm going to be honest with you, lots of workplaces now, they're not interested in you loyal, if they're loyal, if you're loyal at all. Can you do the job? Yeah. If you can't, you're on your bike. So this loyalty thing for many workplaces now, there's some workplaces, if you're loyal, they nurture it, they develop it, they want to see you flourish. But lots of places, no, all you are is a number. And in some organizations, because it's well known, if you leave, they're not bothered because it's such a large organization, people want to work there. So it's really important about loyalty being a good thing. However, what I'd like to say, that strength is brave enough to talk about what is hurting on the inside. That is good. But also then it's strength to walk away when you need to walk away. That is really important. It is good to have the strength, to find the strength to talk about what's hurting you. But also it's good enough. It's also, we need the strength to walk away when things are really getting at us. And I shared in my article how I was unwell, ended up with the most severe attack of eczema, ended up shedding skin. I never knew that a human body could shed so much skin and still function. And I remember being in the hospital, and when the dermatologist came to see me, he said, Delroy, look, you know, this is really bad. So what we're going to have to do, we're going to have to put some stuff on your skin, mainly on your back. And then he said this stuff called, a bit like lard, he said you have to smear it on. And then after that, some really strong steroid cream. And then he said, what we normally do is, so we ask patients to wear a white body stocking. And I said to him, me, a black man wearing a white body stocking? Nah, I don't think so. Anyway, they didn't have any. So while everybody was having tablets, I was having nice pretty nurses smearing this stuff on my back. Very nice it was too. I'm going to go no further. Anyway, so this inner angst is crying out for external expression. And as I said, Michael, it's not a marketing gimmick at all. When we're under pressure, when we're feeling this inner turmoil that's going on, we need the space to breathe. We need to be able to breathe. We're looking for a place to relax. It's really important. But what some people do, of course, they function, and some people function very high level, but this thing is chipping away over the years until they crash. And sometimes when they crash, it's not very good at all. So, as I said before, smiling through your pain is futile. It can make life easier for other people, because we don't want to create a fuss. We want to be, we want to be in with it. But I've made two distinctions. And it's something I do bang on a lot, because I hear it so often as people talk. I know within 2 or 3 sentences whether the person who's talking to me about their first line manager, is either a boss or a leader. Simple. The boss just wants to get the job done. Doesn't really care about you and suffering. Do it or don't. The leader now wants the same results, but he or she is interested in your well-being. And I don't mean a leader who say they're interested and then behind your back they gather a case around you and then they get rid of you. Good leaders don't do that. Leaders will take you to one side and say, look, what's going on? Is there anything we can do to help? That's what a leader does. And leader then tries to make things a bit better. I recall somebody private messaging me some time ago to say that they left a very large organization, and when they were leaving, the manager said to them, provided you still kept saying yes, I was quite willing to keep giving you work. Now a leader would take the person to one side and say, look, I've noticed this is happening. Are you managing? Are you okay? That's what leaders do. A boss will just if you just keep saying yep, a boss will just keep churning it out. I will not be asking, how are you coping? How are you managing? Is there anything I can do to help you? Managers don't do that, but leaders do. So we learn to carry on. And I think what part of the thing that upsets us sometimes, that we see things going wrong, other people see going wrong, there's moral injury, and then what other people do, they remain silent. They don't even support you. They see clearly what's going wrong. And sometimes when push comes to shove, they deny what they're seeing until you're left with it on your own. And then quite often you end up as being the victim. Listen, we could spend a long time unpacking those 14 words. But there's a couple of things I think that we can do to help. But these are just teasers. If you are interested, please message me. Here's my contact details. I do training, webinars, seminars. I do keynote speaks. I do talks. So if you want to invite me along, please do. And the work that I'm doing here really is just the kind of it's not even the ice conversation. It's not even scratching the surface. And because of time, if you want extra support on this, certainly small groups of 4 and 5 where we can really move and get into it over a few weeks. I'm certainly able to do that. Contact me. There's my email address. Contact me, or you can contact me through my website, and let's see what let's see what we can do. So the real work is a guy called Dan Campbell. Just 2 things. There's loads of other things, but I'm just going to give us 2 things. He said the real work is letting your voice matter more than meeting the needs and expectations of other people. Basically, what a lot of us do, I was guilty of it. We remain quiet on lots of things. Now, there were times I was very vocal on matters, quite often matters that wasn't related to me, but the wider picture. But we get to a place where what matters is your voice and not the expectation of the people. I remember once making a comment. I saw something, I didn't like it, and I said no to it. And somebody commented, "Oh, very surprised at you, Delroy. We thought you were nice." And I remember thinking at the time, yeah, I'm just expressing my viewpoint, And now I'm not seen as being not nice. I just said, no, I'm not doing it. I wasn't rude. I just listened, and I made myself very, very clear. Wasn't going to do it. And then somebody said, oh, I'm surprised, Delroy. We thought you were nice. Well, I am nice. I think I'm nice, but also I've learned a lot over the years. You can't keep saying yes. You have to say no to certain things. So the real work is letting your voice, and that takes some strength. If you are not encouraged to do so, you're told not to rock the boat, or you're from a culture whereby you can't express your emotions or feel what you really need, that in itself can be really difficult. I recall years ago working with a Chinese student who was doing a particular subject, and she'd failed the exam, and she was inconsolable when she came to the office. She started to talk, and she was crying and crying and crying, and oh, it was really difficult. And then I just said to her, what is it you'd really like to do? And I could not believe this woman in my office was transformed within seconds. She said, I would love to do music. She changed, her character changed. But obviously in a culture whereby she said to me, she had to respect her parents, what her parents wanted her to do, but it was killing her. So sometimes part of what we have to do is to express, assert ourselves, let our voice be heard, regardless of what other people think or may say about us. That's really important. And then I certainly do work in helping people to become assertive and to find their voice. So, and too often we feel what others may say if we talk, so we don't. Furthermore, finding your voice is mostly about having the courage to speak and letting it be enough. You say a bit and that's it. Sometimes you say a bit, you don't want to comment, this is what I'm saying and that's it. Sometimes getting into a dialogue doesn't help. You need to say a bit and you say nothing else, and that's it. Unfortunately, of course, there'll be times when we do utter and express what we say, and it falls on deaf, as I call it, deaf or incompetent ears. And I've heard that before, and I've heard and seen that before. You tell people what's going on, people in authority, people in position, people said in leadership position, and I say that they're in leadership position, but not necessarily leaders, and they haven't got a clue what to do. And sometimes we tell them some stuff and they make it worse by compounding the situation that we're going through. So find spaces to talk. Talking is really important. And I would say to individuals, if your workplace is a place where you're experiencing moral injury, do not confide in people in your workplace, because people can be compromised. If you talk to somebody and then that person then is questioned by an authority figure, you don't want them to buckle, or you don't want them to be kind of being tarred with the same brush. So find spaces outside of work, people who will give you the support that you need. And one of the things that I've shared with lots of groups, I don't know if they've ever done it, with groups of friends, that if you know your friends well enough, and for example, say you can't leave your workplace, you have to stay because the money's good and you've got kids about to go to uni, and I'm going to say something about that in a moment. Maybe if you have a group of friends, is it possible for them to do a role play that they act as the manager and you kind of relive a scenario, and the group helps you? How might you do it differently? How might you work past this manager? How might you manage yourself better in this toxic environment? A bit like drama therapy, that you're acting out what you're experiencing, but you've got friends around you that are really supportive and that can help you work through difficult times. Now, remember, as I'm going to finish now, that having these unpleasant emotions locked in our body is going to cause you harm. In some cultures where they do not, it's kind of a taboo to express what they're feeling, the unpleasant emotions comes out in physical pain. We call that psychosomatic illness. So even if they're here in the UK, but they can't express what they're feeling on the inside, over a period of time, that emotional pain finds a place to lodge within their bodies, and then they have either back pain or leg pain or problems with their feet or problems with their stomach. And if you have a doctor who is switched on, and at the university I worked on, where I worked, the counselling service was right next to the doctor's surgeries, and the doctors were brilliant. They would hear the stories of young people, and what they would do before they would say, before I prescribe some medication, Have a quick chat with the counsellor. Now, it's never a quick chat, of course, because it goes on for 6 sessions or a bit more. Have a quick chat with the counsellor, because the doctors knew that something was going on. Yes, medication may kind of deal with some of the symptoms, but there's something else going on here that needs addressing. So, speaking about what hurts us on the inside is seldom easy to start off with. But when we find the strength to speak, what appeared difficult to begin with, an unsurmountable mountain can lead us into a new space. Those individuals who have experienced moral injury, remember last week I went through the 8 stages that the Australian Defence Force have developed of dealing with moral injury, the pastoral narrative disclosure, the whole way of actually helping people to kind of walk through this kind of experience of moral injury and to come through the other side. What I suspect for most of these individuals, and I've not quizzed them any further, who've experienced moral injury and have had to leave organizations and so forth, what they're doing now, they're so glad they're doing it. So almost as though the moral injury, as horrible as it is, has been a wake-up call. And in a sense, it's a wake-up call to, here's this, it's just come to me now. It's a wake-up call to yourself. You're doing something, it's not you. You need to be doing something different. But sometimes we stay in places because it's comfortable. We don't want to change, and the money might be all right. We know the people, but yet the organization, the structures, and so forth is horrible. And it's easy to stay. And I just wonder whether moral injury can be seen as, even though it's horrible at the time, can be a wake-up call for us to find the path that we need to be walking. Because one of the things, of course, with the pastoral narrative disclosure is working through a process. So in a sense, the person comes out a new person, new values, new perspective, new way of seeing things, experiencing life in new values, and walking a new path. Anyway, listen, 31 minutes, gone over your time. Hopefully next week we're on Facebook. So if you want to intervene, you can. I just want to check if there's any more. No, yes, really difficult because I really enjoyed the exchange and the banter. I know that you can do some stuff on YouTube, but maybe people are not too familiar with writing questions on YouTube. So hopefully next week I'll be back on Facebook on my new account. So watch out. And those of you who are on Facebook, people on Facebook, you watch on Facebook. If you can get a message to them, because I can't remember everybody, and I think I might just have to build up my contacts over a slow period of time, that I'm back on Facebook. So for those of you who have not got my new thing, if you can send me a message, like one person, I tried to get a name, but there's so many of them, and I couldn't find her. So if you can send me a message on Delroy Hall, that's the page, and certainly if you see my picture on it with a beard, it's me. And I'm not too sure if I still pick them up on Dr. Delroy Hall. Try that if you want to, but certainly on Delroy Hall, that works as well. So listen, enjoy the rest of your evening and the rest of the week. Take care. And I'm going to be continuing moral injury. It's just too important an issue to just let go after 5 sessions. So my friend in America, I believe, or Canada, who said it's a pity it's going to end. It's not just for you. The traction has been unbelievable. Really has. So thank you very much for those who've watched, those who are commenting, those who've messaged me. Thank you so much. Thank you very much indeed. Take care. Wish you well. Enjoy the rest of your evening and the rest of your week. Take care. All the best. Bye-bye.